In the early hours of Sunday, August 16th, more than 800 Ukrainian drones crossed the Russian sky, and 600 of them went straight to Moscow.
Перекинется, понял, налево. Ну вот я вижу уже 3 блока вот слева.
It's the biggest air attack by Ukraine this year. And the main target wasn't a military base. It was the largest warehouse in all of Russia, which burned down completely, with $1.5 billion worth of goods inside. But that's not the most serious part. Zelensky himself warned, this is just the warm-up. In this video, I'll show you the plan behind these attacks. A plan that doesn't target depots, it targets Russia's banks. And why the next few weeks could redefine this war. Look at these images. This is Kolodino, 40 kilometers south of the Kremlin. That warehouse burning from end to end is the logistics center of Wildberries. For a long time officially, the largest operating warehouse in all of Russia, 250,000 square meters. It has the capacity to process 2.5 million orders per Dalton. Now, look at the Russian man filming by the side of the road. He says, I can already see 3 sections on fire. And how do you put that out? He was right, nobody put it out.
Ну вот я вижу уже 3 блока вот слева.
There is a record of almost 5 minutes of this fire filmed from the top of a building. 5 minutes of footage, no fire trucks, not even a water jet. Just the line of fire jumping from one warehouse to another until it took over the entire horizon. And look at this detail. This image came from a dashboard camera with a timestamp in the corner of the screen, 5:37 in the morning. The smoke turned the morning into night over a federal highway. And this other image, the most beautiful and most frightening of the day, was filmed more than 12 hours after the attack. 12 hours. And the complex was still burning with this intensity. Kolodino was not. Pay attention to this image from a city surveillance camera. 2 columns of smoke in the same frame at the same time with a date stamp. The one on the left comes from Kolodino. The one on the right is from Severnoye Domodedov, another giant logistics complex with more than 540,000 square meters, which the drones also hit that same early morning. A resident filmed both fires in a single pan, one at each end of the horizon. Inside Domodedovo, in daylight, the damage becomes apparent. Collapsed roof, twisted beams, torn wall. The woman filming sums it up well by saying, a nightmare. And in the south of the country, in the Rostov region, more than 150 drones hit 3 cities and a railway station. The Russian Ministry of Defense said it destroyed 822 Ukrainian drones. Meanwhile, the mayor of Moscow, Sergei Sobyanin, admitted that 600 drones were flying toward the capital. And the TASS, a state agency, called it the largest Ukrainian drone attack since the beginning of the year. Now pay attention, because this is where the analysis begins that you won't find on news sites. Look, no one sends 822 drones to destroy 2 warehouses. They send 822 drones to saturate the air defense, that is, to overwhelm the system with more targets than it can shoot down. Each Russian anti-aircraft missile costs a fortune. Each Ukrainian drone costs a fraction of that. When you fill the sky with cheap targets, the defender has to choose what to protect. And that night, Russia's choice was exposed. It couldn't even defend the largest warehouse in its own country, 40 kilometers from the Kremlin. A resident of Podolsk mocked the situation by writing in his video, Podolsk, good morning. Another filming the column of smoke between two buildings, asked, "When will we be able to sleep in peace?" After 4.5 years of hearing that the war was far away, the Moscow region woke up under a black cloud. But then comes the obvious question. Why is Ukraine using drones on an e-commerce warehouse and not on a tank factory? And the answer, well, it's the smartest plan of this phase of the war. This is Wildberries. It's like the Amazon of Russia, and that's no exaggeration. According to data cited by the press, Wildberries and Ozon, the two largest e-commerce platforms in the country, together move the equivalent of 8.5% of Russia's GDP, almost a tenth of the entire country's economy. And they employ 4 million people, more than 5% of Russia's entire workforce. When a warehouse like this burns down, it's not just merchandise turning to ashes, it's small sellers going bankrupt, deliveries being delayed all over the country, inflation, and the average Russian feeling the war in their pocketbook. At the end of that same day, a driver recorded smoke from Domodedovo on the horizon along the same route and a line hundreds of meters long at a gas station in the area. And before anyone says that Ukraine attacked an innocent civilian target, check out this detail. On Wildberries' own website, there was an official category called Everything for the Special Military Operation. That's right. The Russian Amazon openly sold FPV drones. The small attack drones, camera-guided and dominating the front lines, optical fiber for military drones, ballistic vests, and helmets. The same equipment that kills Ukrainians on the front line with fast delivery. The company denies supplying the army. But the category was documented on the website until early August. Ukraine didn't choose this target by chance. Wildberries made itself a target, and what happened on Sunday was not an isolated event. It was the latest chapter in a methodical campaign. Since July 18th, Ukraine has already hit more than 20 of the company's facilities across Russian territory. CNN has independently confirmed that the images are indeed from Koledino. And it summed up the goal of this campaign: to bring the war into the homes of ordinary Russians and make each day of war more costly for the Russian government. These images here, for example, are from Bashkortostan, more than 1,200 kilometers from Moscow, on the other side of the Volga River. The campaign reached the entire country, and it wasn't just drones. In August, hackers from Ukrainian military intelligence took down the company's digital infrastructure. Payments were frozen, customer service went offline. And the results, in numbers, show that this is working. According to the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, with the fall of Koledino, 7 out of the 10 largest Wildberries distribution centers are out of operation. The company has already lost more than 1 million square meters of warehouses. Revenue has dropped by about a quarter. And the estimated losses are already approaching $12 billion. But destroying merchandise is just scratching the surface. The real plan targets something else: the banks. And this is where things get serious. On the morning of the attack, Firepoint, the Ukrainian manufacturer of the drones used in the operation, posted the following: "Good morning to everyone, except Wildberries in Koledino." And they claimed responsibility. The attack used the FP1, a drone manufactured by the company itself. Weeks earlier, the company's co-founder, Dennis Stillerman, had explained the logic. According to him, Wildberries is the largest borrower in all of Russia. In other words, it's the company that owes the most to the country's banks. The company grew on the back of huge loans, many of them from VTB, the second largest bank in the country, which is state-controlled. And then the math gets scary for the Russian government. If Wildberries goes bankrupt, it doesn't go down alone. According to Stillerman, the collapse would drag down the banks that financed it, including VTB itself. Think about the domino effect that this has. A cheap drone destroys a warehouse. The destroyed warehouse turns into a loan default. The default hits the bank. The bank is state-owned. And the Russian state, already bleeding from sanctions and war expenses, would have to bail out the system. In my view, we are facing something unprecedented, an attempt to break an enemy country through credit. That's a theory, but the next few months will confirm if that's really the case, and, most importantly, if it's working. But you can't deny that the chosen targets make too much sense to be a coincidence. And now, I owe you the answer to the mystery from the beginning. Let me tell you something that's going to confuse you. Wildberries. This company that's being targeted by the attacks knew that Coladino would be attacked. Yes, they knew. After all, the complex was made up of the company's two largest warehouses, and the other one, in Elektrostall, had already turned to ashes in July. 7 out of the 10 largest distribution centers had already fallen. It was just a matter of days, and even so, Coladino burned while fully stocked. With about $1.5 billion in merchandise, according to analysts' estimates, now comes the question. Why? And before the answer, do this. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. Because this story will have a new chapter every week, and we'll be here to keep you informed. So, why didn't they empty it? Well, let's be honest. Nobody from the outside knows for sure. But I'll give you the possible explanations. But remember, they're just hypotheses. The first one is physical impossibility. That's because a warehouse that processes 2.5 million orders a day doesn't empty out in a week, especially when the other big warehouses also turn to ash. The second could be something as simple as denial. Think about it. Evacuating would be publicly admitting that Russian air defense can't even protect the Moscow region. And the last one is betting on insurance. But there's a problem here. According to experts interviewed by the Russian press, it's unlikely that insurance will be able to cover the costs. Whatever the answer, the picture is the same. A country that's too big to evacuate in time, too weak to defend its own skies, and too proud to admit either of those things. This is Russia in August 2026. And if you think Sunday was the peak of this campaign, it's because you haven't seen what Zelensky has been saying. He warned that it was just the warm-up. The day before the big attack, Zelensky confirmed another strike. This time, the main players were the Flamingo missiles made in Ukraine, which hit the Progress Center in the Samara region. It's one of the key companies of Roscosmos, the Russian space agency 900 kilometers from the border. Look at these images. A fireball in the early hours, and by morning, black smoke rising behind the building. Days earlier, Ukraine had confirmed an attack on the oil industry in Tobolsk. And Tobolsk is in Siberia. And in a meeting of the general staff with weapons manufacturers, Zelensky gave an order in public. He ordered an expansion of the geographic scope of long-range attacks. In other words, to strike farther and in more places. And he signed 3-year contracts with the manufacturers. This is not just any retaliation. It's a planned industrial campaign with a set schedule and budget. And the United States knows this. Next to Zelensky, Trump himself acknowledged it in public. Ukrainian advances and long-range attacks are increasing the pressure on Putin to reach an agreement. What is clear to us is that the American government treats this campaign as a bargaining tool. Every warehouse that burns is another argument at the negotiating table. And what about Russia? Well, Russia is doing what a cornered villain does. It's doubling down. On the same night, Russian missiles hit Kyiv. And look at what's left of the traditional Pochina book market. Books scattered on the asphalt among rubble and firefighters. The book market. Missiles also hit the largest steel mill in Ukraine, in Kryvyi Rih. And days earlier, ballistic missiles supplied by North Korea killed 6 people in Zaporizhia. Zelensky himself warned Russia is increasing missile production and preparing to mobilize more people. And do you know what that means? That Putin is not preparing for peace. And every one of these moves only confirms why Ukrainian pressure exists and why it will increase. And there's another detail from that early morning that almost no one mentioned, and it might be the most serious of all. At 4:44 in the morning, radars in Romania, a NATO member, detected a drone entering Romanian airspace from Moldova. A Spanish F-18 fighter jet on patrol for the alliance shot down the target at 5:01 in the morning. Moldova reported tracking a Shahed-type drone, the type of attack drone used by Russia. And a spokesperson for NATO's military command said the drone is likely of Russian origin. It was the 4th drone shot down over Romania just this year. And in the midst of this turbulent scenario, where both sides announced escalation in the same week, the chances of this being an accident are getting smaller and smaller. So, I know we've talked about a lot of things here, but going back to my theory about breaking Russia through credit, let's see if in the next few days or weeks, the 3 major Wildberries distribution centers that are still operating, if they go down. Because if that happens, this collapse theory gains strength. And in comes VTB, that bank I mentioned earlier. Any sign of a bailout from the state to the bank confirms that the dominoes have started to fall. Let's keep an eye on it. But regardless of what happens, one thing is clear. This war has entered a new phase, and it will be decided both in the banks and on the front lines. And we will follow every chapter here on the channel. So subscribe now and turn on notifications, because the next move could come before dawn any night. See you in the next video.